G'day, I'm Bruce Alexander, and this short video will explain why reasonable, compassionate, fair-minded people should vote no in the referendum for an Aboriginal voice to Parliament. Did you notice something the moment I said vote no? I sound a bit mean, don't I? As if I'm trying to hold something back from Aboriginal Australians, something they worked for, something they deserve. This is the first way the referendum is stacked in favour of a yes vote. Yes makes you seem like a positive person. It gives you a cheap way to signal your moral superiority when there's much more at stake here than who's better than who. Many voters won't consider how they're being tricked by appealing to the attractiveness of answering yes. It's easy to attach yes to the kind of emotional, poetic statements the yes advocates are feeding us. Anthony Albanese, speaking at the Northern Territory Garma Festival, said it would bring a new day of unity to the nation. See, the idea of voting yes makes you feel as though you're making progress. Linda Burney, Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, said in Parliament on August 1, vote yes for unity, hope and to make a difference. OK, you won't fall for it if you're a careful thinker, but remember, voting is compulsory. It will include millions of people who haven't considered the issues and will vote according to what sounds right, what seems right. Imagine for a moment if the referendum question was, should our parliamentary system treat all Australians of all races the same? Now, if that was the question, you'd expect almost a 100% vote for yes. Who wouldn't want a parliament that treated all races the same? Yet, as things are, a victory for the yes vote will achieve precisely the opposite. It'll give one race or ancestry special race-based privileges, specifically preferential access to Parliament and heads of government departments. Now, what would a fairer system look like? Simple. A ballot paper with two boxes so voters could tick one. Box 1 would be Parliament should give special access to Aboriginal Australians, and beside Box 2, Parliament should give all Australians equal access. Now that would be fair. That would put the two choices side by side and take a guess. All or most Australians would vote for equal access to Parliament for all Australians, not race-based privilege for a few. The second way the referendum is stacked in favour of the yes vote is calling it a voice at all. That suggests Aborigines don't have one. Aborigines certainly do have a voice to Parliament. We all do. It's called your local member and the senators you elected at state and federal levels. Telling people they should vote to give Aborigines a voice to Parliament suggests they don't have one, and of course they do. This referendum in reality is asking you to give Aborigines an extra voice, a preferential voice, privileged access to our Parliament over and above the one-person, one-vote system that gives all Australians an equal voice. That's undemocratic. But calling it something sweet like a voice makes it sound fair and reasonable. The third way you're being tricked is the way the Yes campaign pitches this vote as if it were about recognition. The extra chapter proposed for the Constitution is headed Recognition of Australia and Torres Strait Islander Peoples. In Parliament on August 1 this year, Minister Burney said the 2023 referendum is about constitutional recognition through a voice. Should Aborigines be recognised? By all means. Who would object to that? But the change to the Constitution we're voting on goes far beyond recognition. It seeks to grant Aborigines privileged access to Parliament and heads of government departments, something not available to non-Aboriginal Australians. That's a lot more than recognition. But the term recognition is used to sugarcoat the pill and hide the true extent of the proposed changes. The recognition Australia gives its Aboriginal population, I think, is way out of proportion. We fly the Aboriginal flag alongside the Australian flag, dress our sporting teams in Aboriginal-inspired designs, rename places like Fraser Island with Aboriginal names, and open a range of events with welcome to country ceremonies. Oh, and did I forget? This video comes to you from Gadigal land in the Eora Nation. Look, if recognition is what Aborigines are seeking, they have it now by the truckload. By the way, my partner is majority Indigenous North American. when she goes to the US, she doesn't feel she has the right to welcome Americans to their country. Now, what if Aborigines really do get special race-based access to Parliament? Will the clamouring for special treatment for Aborigines stop there? No, it won't. On February 20th this year, again, Minister Burney said the Arulu statement was unanimously supported at Arulu at the Constitutional Convention in 2017. It asks for voice, treaty and truth. In the next couple of weeks, she said, we'll be making an announcement about a Makarrata Commission and how we're going to advance treaty and truth. So, the voice to Parliament is only stage one. After that comes a call for treaty. Yes campaigner Noel Pearson told the Judith Neilson Institute on April 2 that the voice was the starting point before we can talk about treaty. Make no mistake, the treaty the voice would lobby for will include compensation payments to Aborigines. Don't take my word for it. Trust Thomas Mayo, a member of the government's referendum working group. Mayo says the voice is, quote, the first step, a vital step, and it puts all the explanation behind it. Pay the rent, for example. How do we do that in a way that is transparent and that actually sees reparations and compensation to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people? Reparations and compensation? Who would pay that? Obviously ordinary Australians via their taxes. But what did we do? Why are we liable to pay compensation? Now, it's true colonial Australia's history has a black spot, the inexcusable mistreatment of some Aborigines. But I didn't do it. Why am I liable to pay compensation? Who do I pay it to? How are Aborigines today in a position to receive it? And even if you believe in hereditary guilt and hereditary entitlement, what about Australians born overseas? Are they liable to pay compensation to Aborigines? What about Australians who are only part Aboriginal? Would they be paying compensation or receiving it? What about white Australians who decide to come out as Aboriginal? Would they also receive compensation? How much? And would that finally make them happy? These are very messy issues. They create more problems than they solve. Australians will have no one but themselves to blame for the consequences if they allow the special race-based voice to Parliament proposed in the referendum. The answer is vote no. Now, if what I've said so far seems reasonable, please play your part. Play your part. Share this video with friends, comment below, hit the like and subscribe button so it'll come up when people search for it on YouTube. I mentioned earlier how this referendum is rigged in favour of the yes case. Voting yes makes you feel like you're doing something for the social and personal dysfunction in Aboriginal communities. All the yes case needs to do is point to one area of failure and say, there's your proof. We need an Aboriginal voice to Parliament. It's not proof at all. How will the voice fix the problem they mention? How would the voice be any different from the 100 plus government departments charged with improving outcomes for Aborigines and the $30 billion or more annual budget that sustains them? Minister Burney said that the early priority for the voice would be, among other things, Aboriginal housing. She's not referring to building homes in the usual way and selling them to Aborigines. About 50% of Aborigines of working age are on welfare. Aboriginal housing means free housing for Aborigines. Who's going to pay for all those houses? The voice doesn't generate income, it just makes recommendations about how the government spends taxpayer funds. Solving the problem of Aboriginal housing, for example, could only mean recommending that Parliament allocates more than the current $300 million allocated for Indigenous housing each year. Isn't the problem that Aborigines receive too much already? Don't prominent Aboriginal leaders acknowledge that welfare dependency, what they call sit-down money, deprives their communities of responsibility, urgency and the need to work? Doesn't living off the taxpayer rob Aborigines of the ability to say, my future depends on me? My message to Aboriginal men, be good husbands, be good dads, gain skills, stay off the grog, live where the work is, be a role model for your kids. And if you're one of the 50% of working-age Aboriginal men living on welfare, you've got time to invest in these life skills. An extra voice to Parliament is no substitute for your personal responsibility. There's so much more we could say, and I'm highly motivated to say it. For example, it emerged early August that the Uluru Statement, the one the Albanese government has promised to implement in full, is not just the poetic one-page document we've been told, but actually 26 pages long. We're being asked to vote for something we've never seen. But let's stay focused on the purpose of this brief commentary, which is to give reasonable, fair-minded, compassionate people all the reasons they need to vote no. Reason 1. The referendum is constructed in such a way that people who haven't thought it through will vote yes because yes seems like a positive thing to do, and voting no makes them sound mean. If the referendum question was, should access to Parliament be the same for all Australians, the yes vote would romp it in. As things are, voting yes is about achieving the opposite, preferential access to Parliament based on race. Reason 2. Calling it a voice to Parliament is deceptive because it suggests Aborigines don't already have one, and of course they do. Every Australian does. The yes vote would give Aborigines an extra voice to Parliament, one not available to non-Aboriginal Australians. That's undemocratic. It brings race to the forefront when your race should count for nothing. Reason 3. The Yes campaign uses the expression recognition, and the clause to be included in the Constitution is headed Recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. This is a con. The voice is about much more than recognition. It's about dividing Australia into black and white with differing access to Parliament based on skin colour. Reason 4. The government are refusing to declare that the voice is only stage 1 of the Uluru Statement. Minister Burney explained in February how the statement asks for voice, treaty and truth, and went on to say the government are going to advance treaty and truth. Thomas Mayo described it as paying the rent, seeing reparations and compensation. I quoted the full quotes earlier. Reason 5. The Yes campaign point to a failure in the Aboriginal community and say, there's your proof, we need a voice. This assumes the voice has the solution, but that's what we're debating. You can't assume it. How would the voice be any different from the 100 plus government departments and agencies charged with improving outcomes for Aborigines and the $30 billion that sustains them? These are the 5 reasons to vote no. There may be more disasters to come out of the yes vote. It's impossible to foresee, but since the changes to the Constitution will be permanent, we'll live with this a long time if we get it wrong. According to the surveys, the referendum is going to be close. That means, whatever the outcome, around 50% of the voting public are going to feel let down. We will be a nation divided between yes and no voters, but the strongest division of all will be between black and white, with something as feeble and irrelevant as skin colour suddenly becoming of prime importance in determining who has direct access to the most sacred of our democratic institutions, our Parliament. Friends, don't let it happen. Vote no in the Voice referendum and encourage everyone in your circle to do the same.